What up, everybody? This is Stuart Knight, author of the books Marginalizing White Supremacy, Poetic Visions, A Steep Mister for a Sister, and A Spirit the World Has Forgotten. And just like everybody else who's probably sat here and watched today's events with the siege at the White House, when as far as, these white supremacists, contending that the election was stolen, so to speak, through mass voter fraud, they stormed the Capitol and basically took it over for a while. Now, this event today, man, really should bring a lot of clarity to most black people around this country, in that the law, as pertains to rioting and protesting, is definitely different for black people than it is for white people. I mean, here you had thousands of white people who stormed the Capitol building of the United States of America. Nobody was arrested. One woman was shot and killed by the Capitol Police, of course, unfortunately. But the surprising thing is that, there was no mass riot, police and riot gear. There was no military style, vehicles on scene immediately to launch rubber bullets and tear gas and bust black people upside the head with billy clubs. Kind of like the actions we've seen, during the protests, for Black Lives Matter. Not that I'm with that organization, but as far as the slogan is concerned, but when black people was out there in the streets protesting, nowhere near the law enforcement assault upon these white protesters that attacked the Capitol that was seen upon black people. Now, that should be very, very telling. And it wasn't like these white supremacists weren't announcing beforehand that they intended on interrupting the vote count at the Capitol. It was well known. But yet there was no kind of guard, there was no kind of police presence, nothing there, for just in case that happened. Now, as we've seen, when it came to black people protested, oh man, I mean, just a whiff of an idea that black people was going to get out in the streets. Oh man, it was police and riot gear and horses on horseback and, paddy wagons, everything all nice and ready. We're going to lock you Negroes right the hell on up. Now, that should be very clear from these events today that transpired to black people, that the laws are applied differently, and they're definitely applied for you. Believe that. Now, you see, most of these white people were out there in Washington behind some supposed event of there having been some kind of voter fraud. Now, you got to understand the coded language of white supremacy, and when they say voter fraud, they're actually implying that black people, with their illegitimate reasons to vote, or the illegitimate vote, went and voted, and thus practiced voter fraud, because we as white people did not sanction them voting for Joe Biden. That's what they mean by when they say voter fraud. Now, plus on top of that, there was such a concerted effort, a while back, as the election process was going on, for black people to get out and vote. Now, keep in mind that today's events with the insurrectionist storming of the Capitol, that in part has something to do with the black people getting out there and voting and electing Joe Biden in as president. Now, watch what you're going to see. You think black people are going to benefit? No. When them angry white folks left that Capitol, they have a plan, definitely, to get you. And then once the Congress starts, those Republicans who don't like the fact of how the vote went, they're going to ensure that Biden does the same thing that Clinton did when he got elected president. You see, the Republicans back then forced a Republican agenda upon him, which in turn made Clinton enact all the laws that really hurt and crippled the black community, as you see today, with welfare to work and with the prison industrial complex being established and started. So those Republicans of today are going to do the same thing to Joe Biden. So if you think that, you're going to get something for what you did as far as electing Biden, yeah, black people, Keep your eyes open, because you're gonna really see how white supremacy works. You know, they're gonna maintain each other. They're gonna enact laws that's gonna soothe the anger of the white folks that was down there in the Capitol today. And by soothing that anger, they're gonna punish you, black people. You got to keep that in mind. You see, today you got a good visual representation of how white supremacy works and functions. Now, after things move forward, once things begin to move forward, you're going to get an actual realistic view of how white supremacy works and functions. So keep your eyes open. I mean, that was amazing. They even had one protester had his feet up on the desk of Nancy Pelosi. That shows you how far they penetrated into the halls of the Congress. Now, you think if black people were to do the same thing as concerns to, the institutions of the state, shooting black people down in the street, you think if you was to do the same, you would have gotten that far? Without being met with a ferocious military resistance? No, you wouldn't have had. So there, look at that. Keep that in mind. That's how white supremacy looks, and that is how it functions. Once again, this is Stuart Knight, author of the books Marginalizing White Supremacy, Poetic Visions, A Steep Mister for a Sister, and of course my latest work, A Spirit the World Has Forgotten. Peace. Keep your eyes open, black people.